Welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show with celebrity nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and four-time New York Times bestselling author, JJ Virgin. JJ is a warrior mom whose knowledge and expertise have helped change hundreds of thousands of lives with over 3.5 million podcast downloads and appearances on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Larry King Live.
Whoa. This show is about you, not about me. I want to help you find practical, real-world ways to dial in your health and mindset so you can finally lose that weight and feel strong and energized. Stop settling for less than your personal best. It's time to find out how to look and feel better than ever. And I'll be right here with you the whole way. Welcome to the podcast. I have my co-star from TLC's Freaky Eaters with us today. Super excited to have Dr. Mike Dow, a New York Times bestselling author, psychotherapist, neurotherapist, brain health expert, and bestselling author of The Brain Fog Fix, Healing the Broken Brain, and Diet Rehab, coming out with Heal Your Drained Brain, Naturally Relieve Anxiety, Combat Insomnia, and Balance Your Brain in just 14 days. Gosh, we've been getting a lot. Both of us were talking offline. We've both been getting a lot of pings around TLC's Freaky Eaters. Turns out they have that show back out, I guess, on Netflix. So it's got its own audience of people. I've been getting Instagram little messages going, am I a freaky eater? And I'm like, oh man, oh no, what happened here? Anyway, you may recognize him if you did ever watch any of our episodes. He was my co-star. He also is regularly on Dr. Oz, The Doctors, Rachel Ray, Wendy Williams, and The Today Show. And he's been on public television, but he's a super fun guy. We had so much fun together. We kind of talked about maybe doing a little reunion show. We'll see. It could be in the works. But today we're talking about a very important subject around how to know if you've got a drained brain. I was having trouble saying this. How do you know if you have a drained brain? By the way, we've got a quiz for you to figure this out at jjvirgin.com/drained brain. He's going to talk about the 4 different types of drained brains and some things you can start doing right away to turn that around. And he gave me a little pointer about something you better never do if you're going into exercise because it can make things so much worse. I'm not going to tell you what it is, though. You'll just have to listen. All righty. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Mike Dow. How are you?
Oh, my friend. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's super pathetic that the only way I ever get to talk to you is to invite you onto my podcast. Just saying.
I'm going to come visit you very soon.
I'm going to hold you to it, or I'm going to start a smear campaign on social media. There you have it. I'm going to take all of our really wacky stuff. I actually found some pictures from taping Freaky Eaters, and I might just start putting those out there. Maybe,
Oh, my.
Could happen. So careful. All right, let's dive into this place. You've been very prolific with your writing, and I'm super excited about this latest endeavor that you're into with Healing Your Drained Brain. First of all, I love the whole name. That's so awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Good job. But let's go first with why this book? What made you start looking at, first of all, terming it drained brain? What happened? How'd you get into this?
Yeah, well, I think people know what it is. When I was doing the segment on Rachel Ray, she said, I don't know exactly what a drained brain is, but I'm pretty sure I have it. And, that's what I was finding. People are just feeling so stressed out. And when you look at anything going on in our world, all of the stats are that we are more stressed out than we ever have been. People are freaking out, whether, they're survivors of abuse, whether you're just turning on the news and you can't stand what's going on in our world. And we know that untreated drained brain isn't just something that makes you feel uncomfortable. We now know that if you don't treat it, you're 4 times likely to develop high blood pressure. Untreated panic attacks in women increase your heart attack and stroke risk. So I just really felt called to do something because I feel like it's almost universal that, over half of our country people are walking around with these drained brains, stressed out, frazzled. They don't have the energy. They're not sleeping well. So here you have it. Heal your drained brain. Here it is.
Yikes. Okay. So if for everybody listening who's going, that's me, don't worry. We're going to give you some ideas on how to fix it. Let's talk about the neurochemicals, the brain chemicals involved in this and why they're so awful and scary.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating. So I have 4 different subtypes of drained brains, and we've seen this in research in children and adults. So in the first 3 subtypes, all 3 of your brain drainers, these are stress hormones, are going too high. So adrenaline, norepinephrine, that's that primary wave, and then that secondary wave of cortisol. Now we know that in my 3rd subtype, we have what's called a blunted response. So I call that drop drain. So the stress hormones start to go up, but then it's like a wave hitting a cliff. So then you don't have the energy to get through the stressor. And then the 4th subtype of drained brain, we actually have low levels of cortisol and high levels of adrenaline. And what's interesting, research has shown that if you're a survivor of trauma or abuse, that you actually are likely to have this subtype of a drained brain. And of course, so generally speaking, when stress hormone levels are too high, you're going to feel frazzled, in terms of the stress response. Remember, it's sort of like Goldilocks, right? It's a little bit of stress response is good, but too much is bad. So we're trying to get to that sweet spot because when those stress hormones rise and fall like a wave as they should, then we're able to rise to the occasion, get through the stressor, and then they fall. But if you have a drained brain, what happens is those stress hormones go high and stay high in most cases. And when that happens, you don't have the energy. You're feeling like you're in a constant state of dread, panic, anxiety, stress, insomnia, all of that stuff, that yucky stuff that we don't want. And then, of course, you're probably going to crave sugar or alcohol or too much wine on a Tuesday night by yourself because you just can't handle everything, right? So we know it affects the way you think, the way you feel, and it can affect your health in some very profound and real ways.
And I love that you've created this quiz. Everyone's going to get this brain drained quiz. This is one you can't say fast. You can't say that. And just so you're listening, because you're probably going, and I've seen this in my own practice, is that when people probably in the first one, the light drain, they probably are thinking, I'm doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
As those chemicals start to come up, they're like, ooh, which is not good. It's going to take you down over time. But you'll be able to figure out where you are in this, which of those types you are, because if you're listening, I'm betting you probably are one of these types. The light drain, and I have it here, light drain, skyrocket drain, drop drain, and extreme drain. Those 4 you just described. Yep. So you'll be able to take the quiz at jjvirgin.com/brain drained. And that's drained with an ED. Let's dig into this because they're going to figure out if they have one through the quiz, right? And you just kind of described the different feelings you would have in the different parts of the quiz, different parts of those. But someone finds out they have a drained brain. Maybe I'll call it brain drained, drained brain. Someone finds out they have a drained brain, and I'm going to call it drained brain. It makes more sense, I think. So jjvirgin.com/drained brain. Someone figures out they have one, and I'm willing to bet that most people have or fall somewhere on the scale, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely
right. I will tell you that I've been working a lot on this. And I finally think maybe I'm just in the light drain. Finally, maybe I've gotten out of extreme drain.
Hey, better than extreme. I'll take it.
Right. I know when we were working on Freaky Eaters, I was definitely in extreme drain. My goodness.
Me too.
That was crazy.
Yep.
Plus we lived at Starbucks. That was like,
sure did. I know.
Right?
we
did not help ourselves sitting there working out of Starbucks all day in between the little calls. So let's kind of start in because I want to give people, they're going to be able to figure out where they are, but let's talk about a couple things you can start doing right now that can start turning this around. So how about food? Because I know that you're really into food and how it can impact your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have these omega-3 superfoods. And, in this book, because the subtitle is Naturally Relieve Anxiety, Combat Insomnia, and Balance Your Brain in Just 14 Days. We have these 2 main problems, right? So some people are more stress and anxiety. Some people are more insomnia. So we have these two forms of omega-3s. We have EPA, which in this book I call your stress-less omega-3, because studies have shown high doses of EPA can reduce anxiety by 20% while decreasing inflammation. And I call DHA your sleep soundly omega-3 because it's been recently shown to promote restful sleep. So if you're shifting away from all that yucky stuff that I know you and I both hate, like soybean oil that increases the amount of pro-inflammatory omega-6s in your brain and body, and you shift to these omega-3 superfoods, you're going to be getting more of that stress-less omega-3, more of the sleep soundly omega-3. And then we also know that all of these incredible vegetables and whole fruits. Of course, we don't want to spike our blood sugar with fruit juice, yuck, but we do want to find those whole fruits, those vegetables. We know that sugar shrinks your brain. We know that sugar is shrinking the hippocampus, chronic stress, if you don't know how to handle it, shrinking the prefrontal cortex. But we also know that a wide variety of fruits and vegetables work in different ways, right? So I talked about the brain drainers. In this book, I also have a short list of brain balancers. So acetylcholine, GABA, serotonin, endorphins, melatonin, oxytocin, all of these other chemicals that we want more of that help us deal with stress. So, generally speaking, as brain drainers, cortisol, adrenaline, as they go down, hopefully you're going to be increasing one or more of those brain balancers. So there are a lot of fantastic vitamin and mineral cofactors in those veggies and fruits. We know some of them work directly on cortisol. We know that high levels of vitamin C can help you to deal with cortisol spikes. We know that other B vitamins act as cofactors so that your body can take the amino acids in your healthy diet, convert them into GABA, convert them into serotonin. Yes, those are the same two stress-relieving chemicals, GABA, that's released by Xanax and Klonopin, and then serotonin, the same chemical that SSRI antidepressants that are often prescribed for anxiety are meant to boost in the brain.
Can I interrupt you? Doesn't it make you nuts as a psychologist knowing that people are given all these prescription meds without trying to do some of this dietary intervention first that will naturally produce and raise these? Like, come on, it's craziness, isn't it?
It is crazy. And we have there's placebo double-blind studies now. There was a study that compared an omega-3 supplement, high levels of EPA, a lower ratio of DHA, and compared it to prescription antidepressants, and it was just as effective. But how many patients, JJ, are even told that or given the option? Probably almost none of them, which is why they need to read our work so they can find the natural answer.
It just always is amazing to me that this is considered alternative when it should be first line. And the first thing that you want to do is start all of this dietary shifting that you detail out in your book, and you've detailed out in your books before. Get the omega-3s. And my gosh, I think like if people just started doing more omega-3s and got some of the toxic food out, like it's amazing how much would shift.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to stop my rant.
Preach into the choir.
So I know. Well, I know you talk a lot about this, and I'm watching the time. I want to shift because food obviously is a key thing here, and I love that you've really dialed into food and how food can affect your brain and all your brain chemistry once you figured out what your type is, how you should eat. So this is in the book, and you'll get info on this book and how to grab it in the show notes. So you'll want to get those at Drained Brain, so jjvirgin.com/drained brain. But there's some other things that you can do as well. And I love the approach that you're taking where it's this integrated approach of things that you can do. So what about, beyond food, what are some of the other things that you can do that can start to, lower the stress hormone response, get you out of this big flight and fight action people?
Yeah, there are so many clinically effective tools So, I have a lot of sort of, at first glance, some of them might seem a little woo-woo to some of you, but let me tell you that there's a lot of research behind them. So for example, pranayama or breath control practices. So I have all of these breath, ways to shift your breath into diaphragmatic breathing. We know that the breath tends to move upwards towards your chest. When you're in that fight or flight mode, we know that it tends to be more belly based when you're in rest and digest. So you can use a breathing technique to sort of shift you away from that stress response. Also, progressive muscle relaxation is another tool in my book. Self-hypnosis, autogenic training, mindfulness meditation, all of these little tools. And what I have people do in the program is every day you try a different tool so that you figure out which tool really works for you, and there's scripts in the book. And when you find that tool, maybe for you, it's progressive muscle relaxation. I prefer self-hypnosis over mindfulness meditation. Sometimes I get a little bored with meditation, but if I use self-hypnosis on myself, I can take myself to a really calm, relaxed place. If that's a little too strange for you, you can use a diaphragmatic breathing, which is just placing one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and moving the breath into your belly. And then there's some other practices, they've been shown in research to work. It's incredible that you put enough of these breath practices together, and they helped people who were survivors of the Asian tsunami to overcome their trauma. So we're helping the nervous system to shift up and down like a wave, because that's what we want. We don't want it to get stuck, right? Because most people, it's stuck in the high position. We want to teach your body. So, I use this sequence where you use bellows breath, where, you're sort of activating your nervous system, but then you use other breath practices to bring it down. It's sort of like interval training for your breath. So much like somebody would be on a treadmill and they'd go to 12 miles per hour and then 2 and 12 and 2 and 12 and 2. That's what I do. You can do the same thing with your breath, and that helps your nervous system to recover, which is kind of cool.
This stuff, I will tell you, my son Grant's been completely, and this was a very typical teenage boy before his severe traumatic brain injury. He was basically played computer games and hung out with his girlfriend. He was like a total normal 16-year-old.
Yep.
Now he does meditation and breath work. And this has been a huge factor in helping him heal.
Oh, that's so cool, JJ. I love.
I did a very odd thing, I must tell you, though. I was at Summit at Sea 2 years ago, and Wim Hof was there.
Oh yeah, and I've heard of like the breath wizard, right?
He's the breath wizard. It was a very, very strange experience with a bunch of people jammed into a little area, sitting in a pool, like literally, there are probably 500 people, 1,000 people jammed into an area for 300 doing breath work together. It was quite interesting.
Oh, you can start to feel it's crazy. You can start to feel high. I've done the holotropic.
Oh, it was. It was like, honestly, it was crazy. It was really something. What about exercise? Because I went to IFM's big brain conference last year, and Perlmutter, who's just so awesome, Dr. David Perlmutter, he's been on the podcast too. He was talking about how exercise increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What does it do here?
Yeah, so it's really fascinating. And, I saw one of your newest programs, which is, based on one of them, which is this sprint interval training, which we know is really effective, right? So, I've broken down different forms of exercise to help people understand what it is doing to your brain chemicals. So, for example, we know that if you are physically fit, you are going to produce about 42% less cortisol throughout the day compared to somebody who's out of shape. And one of the best ways to do that, if you don't have extreme drain, is interval training and pushing yourself really hard into sprint interval training. It only takes 10 minutes. It's been clinically proven. It gets you really in shape really fast. But for people who have that extreme drain, type or skyrocket drain. Sometimes that's not the best place to start because, obviously revving your nervous system can actually cause panic attacks for some people if they haven't started in a different place. So for other people, we know that, listen, if hopefully you've read all of JJ's books, you're no longer eating sugar all day. But if you have in your past, we know that eating a lot of sugar and flour shrinks your hippocampus. Well, guess what? We know that sustained aerobic exercise, like that jog, like that bike ride, like sitting on that rowing machine for 40 minutes, in sort of a sort of a straight fashion in terms of that line, just sort of that straight line as opposed to up and down. We know that is best at increasing neurogenesis. And that can undo some of the brain shrinkage that has been the result of all the sugar that people have been eating. And then for people who are really drained, or, we also want to time it right? So it's really interesting that obviously getting on a treadmill or doing an intense workout is fantastic. But we also know that if you get on that treadmill and you have a lot of unresolved anger, so if you have had a really bad day, you can actually increase your risk of a heart attack by hopping on that treadmill. So if you're having one of those, like, I'm on the end of my rope.
Wow.
Yeah. So you either need
that's something, because I think people when they're angry, they're like, I'll just go work out.
Yeah, exactly. So you either need a spiritual remedy first. So you either need to do a little loving kindness meditation, which is in my book, to let go of anger, because you don't want to rev your body and your heart while you're angry. So you either going to use a spiritual remedy for that, or you can use one of the easier forms of exercise. And maybe that's a great day for yoga, something a little bit something that's not going to rev you quite as high, just until you've overcome that, right? And then once you've overcome the anger, or you feel like you have a little bit more energy, then you move on to interval training. So, I think it's all about the timing and some of these scientifically proven forms of exercise and sort of the timing of when you should do them and why and how they affect different brain chemicals. People just people are fascinated by it, and I come at it from this brain. How do we heal stress, anxiety, insomnia through these different practices and putting them together?
Well, let's talk about that, since you just brought up the idea of what you were thinking, creating different goals with exercise, like don't walk into exercise mad, which I've never heard that. I literally know that there's some days where I feel like I'm irritated and I just have to go work out to get rid of it. And, that's, I have to rethink that.
I'll send you the study.
That's one thing I totally dig here, is I know everything you do is always science-based. So I'm like, that is awesome and fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So what about, how you're thinking and these thought patterns that we have going on? What part do they play in all this?
Yeah. So we know that people who use one of what I call the 7 pitfall thought patterns, they all begin with the letter P, so you can memorize them and sort of watch them. So paralysis analysis, aka rumination, pessimistic thinking, personalization, all of these ways that people think. So if you are one of these people who you're always thinking in a pessimistic fashion, or you personalize, so something goes wrong and you think, oh, why wasn't I smart enough to handle that, that meeting today in a better way, or whatever you're thinking to yourself. All of these negative thought patterns, they affect your brain. They spike these brain draining stress hormones. And, what's really interesting is that I have I created a new protocol for this book called Energy-Based Cognitive Therapy. And it was based off the research that we can actually begin to shift our neurotransmitters by using physical postures from the yoga tradition. Or, a really simple one is this. If you notice one of these pitfall thought patterns, if you notice you're going to that worst case scenario thinking, aka pessimistic thinking, if you are using paralysis analysis and it's getting you stuck and you just can't stop worrying about something, if you put a half smile on your face, that helps you to release neurotransmitters that are feel good. It shifts the brain out of mood congruent recall, where you're just going to light up all your other anxious thoughts and memories, which you don't want. So then while you have your body in a pose, it could be star pose, a half smile on your face, all of these physical poses I have in the book, then I have you go through and I I help you to elicit the contrary evidence. List the three things while the smile is on your face. Think about something that you went through in your life that seemed awful at the time. JJ, your son and that hit and run. For other people listening, their divorce. Something that at the time you thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to get over this? And then look at the evidence from your own life that you have achieved, that you have gotten over, the things that you have been able to triumph over as the contrary evidence. And that will help to turn off some of these pitfall thought patterns because, again, they are bringing you down. They are draining your brain, and draining your brain disrupts your gut. It disrupts your digestion. It spikes your risk of heart attack and stroke. So you want to get rid of it.
Fantastic stuff. And I will tell you, it's, I've really noticed when you have a brain injury like Grant has, all this stuff is amplified. Yeah. So many of the things, I've had the chance to see them firsthand where you may not notice them in yourself as much. So I'm super excited about this book. I'm so glad you wrote it. I want to remind everybody, this book, Heal Your Drained Brain, you're going to want to pick this up. And I'm going to have a link to the quiz in the show notes. The show notes will be at jjvirgin.com/drained brain, and you'll be able to get the brain drained quiz. I was like, okay, that threw me. Oh my gosh. And thank you so much, Mike, for being here with me again today. Super appreciate it. I want you to come hang out with me. So promise me you're going to find a date.
I will. Soon. Thank you so much for having me, JJ.
All righty. Awesome. Now, after the break, I'll be answering the listeners' questions. So stay with me.
Want a better quality of sleep while also calming your brain? Now, there's a great tasting way to do it. JJ Virgin's lemon-flavored sleep candy contains amino acids and nutrients to help you naturally fall asleep with ease. This gluten-free, non-GMO, dairy-free sleep assistant also helps you stay asleep so you feel rejuvenated and more relaxed. So if you want to get a better night's sleep, visit www.jjvirgin.com/products and try JJ Sleep Candy.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And today's question comes from Jody in Elgin, Texas. And believe it or not, Jody, I've been to Elgin, Texas. I actually did a Dr. Phil show there when we tried to take over the town. So yes, remember it well. So Jody says, JJ, how much fish oil did you use with your son, Grant, and for how long? All right. I get asked this a lot. Now, if you haven't been around my podcast, my son Grant, who's now 21, at age 16, was the victim of a hit and run and literally left for dead in the street. He was in a coma for weeks, in the hospital for 4.5 months, severe traumatic brain injury. And I made a decision then that he was going to be 110%. I've detailed all of this in my book, Warrior Mom, and how I did it. And we'll put in the show notes, too, some of the information about him, the movie that I made, You Are Stronger Than You Think, that walks you through it. But here's a couple things that I will tell you about that, because one of the key things that we did to help bring him around quickly was fish oil. He was on fish oil prior to the accident, and I credit that with him making it through, because one of the things that fish oil does is protect your brain. It is neuroprotective. He was on 5 grams of fish oil already because he has bipolar disorder. And for anything, I mean, first of all, I think everybody should be on fish oil, depending on your diet and your size, somewhere between 2 and 5 grams a day, plus a diet rich in antioxidants. So he was on 5 grams prior to the accident. When the accident happened, I got him on 20 grams of fish oil, and I kept him on that for a good 6 months because it helps reduce, basically it puts the fire out in the brain, reduces the inflammation, helps the brain, gives the brain the building blocks to heal. Your brain, we are fat brains. Our brain is over 50% fat. Majority of that omega-3 fat. So that is why I did that. And then I've kept him on 10 grams of fish oil for quite a long time after that. Now he's on 5 to 10 grams now because he's still healing. It's 5.5 years out. He is still healing and repairing, and he is definitely on his way to being 110%. In a lot of ways, he already is better than before the accident. And there's still a couple things we're working on, but no doubt in my mind that he will be. So, fish oil is amazing. Couple things to look for with fish oil. Look for the TG form, the triglyceride form of fish oil. Look for it to be tested to make sure that it is pure. Look for it to have some antioxidants in it to keep it from oxidizing, and ideally have some lipase in it too to help you digest it. I have a couple different forms that I use and offer, and we will put those in the show notes in case you want the capsules or the liquid. And thank you so much for that question. You can ask a question on one of my social media sites, the ones that are the easiest to access, JJ Virgin Official on Facebook and jj.virgin on Instagram. We always checking them out. We're always looking for the questions that fit well with the shows and using them there. So leave them on there. And the other place to go and leave something is, oh my gosh, I would so appreciate if you'll jump on over to iTunes and leave a review, because it helps a bunch. I know that the podcast world is a crowded world, and people, when they're searching through going, what should I listen to? When they see your review, they go, social proof is huge. So I hugely appreciate it in advance if you leave a review on iTunes for the show. And every week we say thank you to someone who has. And this week we're saying thank you to JG Pod. And JG Pod 5-star review and says, what a great benefit with quick information on a healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for that. And thank you all for tuning in. And I will see you next week.
That's all for this episode of the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, which marks another step towards a healthier body and mind. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.